everyone, I'm Florian Puhani. Welcome to my, hopefully, creative training hacks. Once again, this video is based on a request by one of my viewers, although strictly speaking it wasn't even a request this time, just an idea, but what an intriguing one. Oh, and it's also another leg training hack. But before we have a look at it, let me express my sincere gratitude for all those potential new video topics you suggested. Yes, in fact, you got me a whole plethora of them. And most of them not only interesting and challenging, but also quite usable, at least in the long term. So thank you very much for that. Here's the one featured in this video now.
Keranu suggested to have the rope go over your shoulders with the weight hang behind your back to use as a hack squat. The reason I picked this idea first is just that it clearly sounds like the logical sequel to my last video, because it's basically another application of the ring bell. For those of you who are curious how to build a ring bell and haven't seen my last video yet, I've linked it in the info card, top right corner, and in the description below. Now let's start with how you shouldn't put Keranu's idea into practice. The first way would be hanging the ring bell over just one shoulder. I wouldn't recommend it. Sure, you can get away with it if you switch the sides after each set, but you should keep in mind that you're dealing with a new exercise that is very peculiar anyway, so you should try to keep the setup as unproblematic as possible. The second way is a complete no-go. Please, just don't, okay?
Well, Keranu, sorry, but it looks like your idea doesn't work out after all.
Yeah, right. As if anybody would still fall for that kind of trolling by now. Of course it works.
Indeed it does. And if you remember my community post with the respective quiz, you even know how already. With your hands over your head. Well, not exactly over your head. You better incline your arms to the front quite a bit. Thus, you pivot the ring strap over your upper traps so that the mechanical friction and adhesion will reduce the amount of weight you have to hold. Also, as you well know from incline presses, in that position your pecs come into play, which makes holding the ring bell all the easier. Of course, you have to move your head out of the way by flexing the neck and lowering the chin a bit. This might seem kind of fishy to you at first. After all, in any other type of squat movement, it is highly recommended that, on the contrary, you keep your head up and your gaze horizontal during the entire movement. Which brings us to the different and truly peculiar biomechanics of the original hack squat. Here, when it comes to the upper body, it's basically an upside-down world we have to deal with. All of the other squat movements, though meant to primarily target the quads, will also employ your hip extensors, that is hamstrings and glutes, and spinal erectors to a certain degree. That's because, except in the end position, the weight is always somewhat in front of your hips, pulling your upper body into hip flexion. So concentric hip extension is a necessary part of the lift, even in those varieties that allow for a more vertical upper body position, like front and goblet squats. And since the weight has the potential to also pull your back into flexion, you are well advised to arch your lumbar spine against the resistance in order to keep it safe. Buckling under the weight would mean your back is getting rounded. Now, in contrast, here's a picture of the original hack squat like George Hackenschmidt had invented it. Please excuse the low resolution, still I think it's pretty clear there isn't the least possibility of the weight moving in front of your hips. Same goes for the ring bell version, where the weight keeps hanging directly under your tailbone all the time. Here a heavy enough weight will pull your back up and into hyperextension, even to the point where you would fall backwards if you didn't counteract it with your abs and or hip flexors. So instead of a hollow back, you might prefer more of a hollow body position. Like I said before, an upside-down world. To help with your imagination, let me show you a typical hip hinge movement. This is me, and that obviously is gravity. Me, gravity, and so on. And here, for comparison, the reverse hip hinge. This is me, and that is gravity. As you can see, hip extension is lowering the weight, so with the ring bell hack squat, your glutes and hamstrings will help you diddly squat. It almost exclusively works the anterior kinetic chain from lower pecs via abs and hip flexors down to your quadriceps femoris muscles. The latter, of course, are the only ones responsible for the actual movement, while all the others work mostly isometrically. The only muscles that like to collaborate also with the posterior kinetic chain are your deltoids, upper pecs and triceps. So what if you want to exclude those two, or you don't want to hold the ring over your head for some other reason? How about hanging the weight over both shoulders like a rucksack? Luckily, gymnastics rings come in pairs anyway, so without any additional expenditure, let's build a double ring bell with both rings. The straps are really flat and narrow, so 2 loops of ring straps at the same time do in fact fit through the 30mm hole of a typical home gym plate. This would be the economy version of the double ring bell, perfectly suitable for all exercise variations featured in this video. But in case you would like more comfort, let me show you the upgrades. I've already shown you the business version with the short round sling in my last video, although with only one ring attached. But round slings come in a large variety of sizes, and if you already know where to get a short one, why not buy a long round sling too? It doesn't cost much more either. When it comes to how it feels on your traps and back, you might prefer the cushioned fabric of the round sling to the rather stiff and edgy ring straps. Also, if you lead the long round sling through the short one, you don't even need a second carabiner. Another advantage of the sling bell is that you can choose and change your grip spontaneously, whereas on the ring bell you have to preset the straps to your desired length and then stick with it. However, in my experience, as soon as the weights are getting heavier, you will intuitively hold your arms horizontal and nearly straight in order to create more counterweight. So free choice of grip and arm position is less important than it might seem to the beginner. Now let's see how the ring and sling bell variety compares to the other hack squat versions you may know. The machine hack squat, of course, is the most common one, and there is also the so-called barbell hack squat. Those allow you to lift tremendously more weight, but that's because they are compound, not isolation movements. In a machine you will automatically employ your glutes and hamstrings by bracing yourself with your back against the apparatus. And the so-called barbell hack squat is basically just a slightly different kind of deadlift. Yes, you move the weight up and down behind your legs, but for the most part in front of your hips, which to a certain degree makes it a hip hinge movement, so no quad isolation here either. In contrast, George Hackenschmidt's invention, as well as my derivatives based on Carano's fabulous idea, all share the purpose of isolating the quadriceps femoris muscle. Hence the video title Original Hack Squats. So far I have elaborated rather extensively on the different options of equipment. In contrast, the execution of the exercise itself is pretty self-explanatory. You lift the ring or sling bell behind your hamstrings by standing up from a deep squat. If you succeed and don't land on your butt, you did it right. Taking a slightly hollow body position from your hands down to your hips will help you keep the center of gravity sufficiently to the front. Oh, and if you fail after a couple of reps, don't blame it on physics. The proportion of the additional weight to your body weight doesn't change during the set. If that proportion allows you to complete even one rep, it would allow you indefinitely many more. So you're dealing with actual muscular failure like in any other exercise. The bottom position you stand up from is worth a closer examination, because there, as you have already spotted, probably you have two options. If your hips and spine mobility is sufficient, you can simply put your feet flat on the ground, But you have to put them relatively wide and outward rotated, taking a sumo-like stance, so the distance between your heels and the weight stack is relatively short. And you have to lean your upper body forward really far into a relatively horizontal position with your core almost between your thighs. Most likely, and in my opinion frustratingly, you still won't be able to reach full knee flexion that way. Well, sure, if you're mobile enough you can reach it. You just won't get up again with the extra weight under your butt. So that leaves your effective range of motion somewhat restricted. From that starting position you will also engage your adductors to a certain degree. So if you want to isolate your quads even more, you have to choose the alternative, which is heel elevation. You may already have spotted it in some of the previous takes. This will allow you to reach an ass-to-the-grass squat position with maximum knee flexion even in a narrower stance. George Hackenschmidt and his contemporaries elevated their heels freely at their own discretion. But I prefer the stability provided by putting your heels on some robust object. Thus you will be able to push through your heels as soon as you get out of the hole, like you are probably used to from other leg exercises. It makes sense to choose an object without sharp edges and to experiment with the height in order to derive maximum benefit from it. So, how would the ring or sling ball hack squat fit into your personal training regime? Well, naturally, it can serve as a substitute for any other quad isolation exercise. In a gym, that would be the leg extension machine. But I've got to be honest with you, if you are used to the convenience of that device, I'm afraid you might be disappointed with the old school strongman-like stuff I'm presenting here. After all, it is so much easier to simply sit down and put a pin in a weight stack. In contrast, assembling a ring or sling ball and learning how to put it to use will seem really cumbersome. But then again, who knows, maybe you will even enjoy the greater challenge. In a more calisthenics-based routine, my number one candidate to be replaced by the ring or sling ball hack squat would be the pistol squat, because, plainly speaking, it has an even stronger tendency to put you on your butt. If you have already mastered the pistol squat up to the point where you find it boring, why not switch to an exercise you can progressively overload? And if you are, like me, still struggling with the pistol squat, why not alternate that unilateral pain in the ass with a bilateral exercise where keeping your balance is a bit less challenging? And then, of course, there's the infamous sissy squat. Powerful agent to the uninitiated. But we are initiated, aren't we, viewers? Well, you have at least heard of Ben Patrick, the knees over toes guy, I presume. But all joking aside, let's assume sissy squats would really be the bane of your knees. Well, that doesn't automatically mean your knees aren't bulletproof enough for the much less demanding ring or sling ball hack squat, at least if you start with baby weights. But even if you don't mind the sissy squat at all, you could still appreciate having some alternative in stock. Let me conclude with an important caveat. If you isolate your quads, no matter which exercise you choose, you should always complement it with a posterior kinetic chain movement like Romanian deadlifts, stiff-legged deadlifts or Nordic curls. Or maybe a leg curl machine if you happen to train in a gym. So now I hope I've painted you a comprehensive picture of the original hack squat performed with a ring or sling ball. Or should I call it the Keranu squat after the initiator? Write me a comment about it. If you think I did a decent job not boring you too much, please leave a thumbs up and share this video at least with the nerdier ones of your calisthenics or gym buddies. Also, consider subscribing to my channel. I feel like by now I'm only starting to get the hang of producing this kind of videos. So chances are that I'll be getting even quicker with the uploads. And thank you so much for all your likes, subscriptions and encouraging comments. My name is Florian and I will continue to make an effort so that you don't get bored with your training.